At 88 years old, Max Baer Jr. is finally breaking his silence about Nancy Kulp, and fans can't believe what he's revealing. Born Maximilian Delbert Baer Jr. On December 4, 1937, in Oakland, California, he was practically born into fame. His father, Max Baer Sr., wasn't just any athlete. He was the world heavyweight boxing champion from 1934 to 1935, a larger-than-life figure whose mix of charm, swagger, and controversy made the Baer name unforgettable. Growing up under the shadow of such a powerhouse wasn't easy. Max Jr. inherited his father's good looks, natural confidence, and a bold attitude that drew attention everywhere he went. But being the son of a legend came with its own pressures. The world expected greatness from him before he even knew who he wanted to be. Athletic, handsome, and full of charisma, Max Jr. looked like he was destined to dominate the spotlight. He studied philosophy at Santa Clara University while excelling in sports like golf and boxing, just like his father. Yet, deep down, he knew his path would lead somewhere different. Instead of chasing titles in the ring, he chased dreams on screen. Hollywood in the late 1950s was buzzing with opportunity, hungry for new faces with star power, and Max Baer Jr. fit that description perfectly. He started with small but steady TV roles in hit shows like 77 Sunset Strip, Hawaiian Eye, and Cheyenne. Step by step, he was building his name in a city where fame could either make you or swallow you whole. Those early TV gigs proved Max Baer Jr. had something special on screen, but in 1962, fate stepped in and flipped his entire life upside down. That was the year he landed the role that would make him a household name and trap him in it for decades. Baer Jr. was cast as Jethro Bodine on the Beverly Hillbillies, a wild comedy about a country family who suddenly strikes it rich and moves to high-class Beverly Hills. As Jethro, Baer Jr. created one of the most unforgettable characters in TV history, the overconfident but lovable goof who thought he was smarter than he really was. His goofy grin, hilarious one-liners, and over-the-top swagger made audiences laugh until they cried. His timing and physical comedy were pure gold, turning Jethro into a fan favorite and making the Beverly Hillbillies an unstoppable hit. The show wasn't just popular, it was a full-blown TV phenomenon. At its peak, it was the #1 show in America, pulling in tens of millions of viewers every single week. Everyone knew Jethro Bodine, but that fame came with a price. For all the success the role brought, it also boxed Baer Jr. into one corner. Hollywood couldn't see him as anyone but Jethro. The same character that made him famous was now holding him back, and breaking free from that image would be harder than anyone imagined. When the Beverly Hillbillies wrapped up in 1971, after an incredible 9 seasons, Max Baer Jr. hit a wall that every TV legend dreads. Escaping the shadow of an iconic role turned out to be tougher than anyone could imagine. Casting directors couldn't look past Jethro Bodine. They were too scared audiences wouldn't either. No matter how talented or determined he was, Hollywood couldn't stop seeing him as that goofy country boy with big dreams and a bigger grin. Doors that had once been open started slamming shut. But instead of giving up, Baer Jr. flipped the script on his own story. He refused to let typecasting define him, showing a sharp mix of creativity and business genius that nobody saw coming. He jumped behind the camera, producing, writing, and directing his own projects with the grit of a man who wasn't afraid to bet on himself. In the 1970s, he launched his own production company and started making low-budget films that shocked everyone by actually turning a profit. His biggest hit came in 1974 with Macon County Line, a raw, gritty film loosely based on real events that took audiences by surprise. Made on a shoestring budget, it went on to make millions, proving Baer Jr. wasn't just a one-hit TV wonder, he was a serious filmmaker with vision and guts. By the mid-1970s, Max Baer Jr. had one mission: to show the world that his creativity went way beyond Beverly Hills and way beyond Jethro Bodine. In 1975, Max Baer Jr. made a fearless move that showed he was done living in anyone's shadow. He produced, wrote, and directed The Wild McCullochs, a tough, Southern-style drama that proved he wasn't just a TV star trying to stay relevant, but a filmmaker ready to make some noise. And Baer didn't just stay behind the camera this time. He stepped right into the spotlight. He played Culver Robinson, a complex and conflicted man that let Baer dive deep into emotional territory fans had never seen from him before. This film wasn't just another project. It was Baer's personal declaration of independence. It screamed loud and clear that he was taking charge of his creative destiny and wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty doing it. That boldness paid off fast. Just a year later, in 1976, Baer delivered Ode to Billie Joe, an adaptation of Bobby Gentry's haunting hit song, and this one hit audiences straight in the heart. The movie struck an emotional chord across the country, becoming a box office success that no one saw coming. It blended heartbreak, small-town tension, and raw Southern soul in a way that made people sit up and pay attention. Critics took notice too. Baer was suddenly being talked about not as a sitcom leftover, but as a filmmaker with real artistic vision and commercial firepower. By the late 70s, he'd only stepped behind the camera one more time to direct Hometown USA in 1979, but Ode to Billie Joe stood tall as his masterpiece. The moment Max Baer Jr. truly shattered the Jethro stereotype and proved he could tell stories that mattered. After dominating Hollywood behind and in front of the camera, Max Baer Jr. switched gears, and he did it with the same fire that fueled his film career. Instead of chasing movie scripts, he set his sights on the business world, stepping into real estate and the casino game with bold confidence and serious brains. He wasn't just looking to make money. He was chasing a dream that mixed nostalgia with pure innovation. Baer had a wild idea: to build an entire Beverly Hillbillies empire, turning the hit TV show that made him famous into something fans could actually walk into. He envisioned a full-scale attraction called Jethro's Beverly Hills Mansion, complete with themed casinos and experiences straight out of the show that America had fallen in love with. It was flashy, daring, and totally Baer style, a mix of Hollywood fantasy and real-world ambition. And this wasn't just talk. Baer backed it up. Reports say he even struck a deal with the network to secure the legal rights to use the show's names, characters, and all the classic details that fans remembered so fondly. With those rights in his pocket, he positioned himself to transform a slice of television history into a living, breathing business empire. By this point, Max Baer Jr. had evolved far beyond the goofy country boy everyone once knew as Jethro. He became a filmmaker, a sharp entrepreneur, and a man who knew how to reinvent himself while still honoring the show that made him a legend. Even with all his success in business, Max Baer Jr.'s connection to the Beverly Hillbillies stayed complicated for years. For a long time, he didn't hide his frustration. That famous role had made him a star, but it had also chained him to a single image. He often admitted that Hollywood couldn't see past Jethro Bodine, and it held him back from exploring the serious roles he'd always dreamed of. But as time passed, Baer's outlook began to change. He started to see the Beverly Hillbillies for what it truly was, a show that brought laughter and happiness to millions. What once felt like a burden slowly turned into a badge of honor. Jethro Bodine became more than just a character. He became a piece of television history that would live forever. In his later years, Baer pulled away from the public eye, choosing a quieter life while still keeping busy with creative projects and smart business ventures. Yet even then, he never stopped fighting for what was his. He got into legal battles over how his likeness was used, especially when it came to Jethro-themed casino slot machines. It wasn't about greed. It was about protecting his legacy, his name, and everything he had built. Then, in 2014, Baer Jr. made headlines once again, this time not as an actor, but as a fighter in the boardroom. He filed a major lawsuit against CBS, claiming the network had made a secret deal with a Des Moines restaurant chain called Jethro's BBQ. After decades in the spotlight, Max Baer Jr. was still proving that when it came to defending his legacy, he wasn't backing down for anyone. Max Baer Jr. wasn't about to let anyone mess with the dream he'd spent decades building. When CBS allegedly struck that secret deal with Jethro's BBQ, Baer saw it as more than a business betrayal. It was personal. This wasn't just some licensing dispute to him. It was a fight for creative ownership, for his legacy, and for the right to profit from the character he had helped make legendary, Jethro Bodine. According to Baer's lawsuit, this battle had roots going all the way back to 1991. He claimed that he'd already made an understanding with CBS years before, an agreement that gave him the rights to use Jethro Bodine, along with other names, designs, and details from the Beverly Hillbillies, for his massive business plans. He wasn't thinking small. Baer was thinking big. His vision went way beyond just a themed restaurant. He imagined an entire entertainment empire built on nostalgia and good times, a world of Beverly Hillbillies-themed hotels, casinos, attractions, and restaurants that would keep the show's spirit alive for generations. It was bold, flashy, and full of Southern charm, exactly what fans loved about the original series. But when CBS allegedly made its own deal with Jethro's BBQ, everything changed. Baer claimed it crushed the value of his rights, sabotaged his years of planning, and wrecked his chances to finally bring that dream empire to life. To him, this wasn't just a business setback. It was CBS stepping on his legacy. He argued that by letting another company cash in on the Jethro name, the network had effectively stolen the opportunity for him to benefit from the very character he had helped make an American icon. The lawsuit revealed a heartbreaking truth. Max Baer Jr. was a man who had waited patiently for decades, holding tight to a dream he believed would finally honor his legacy. But when the moment came, he discovered the ground had quietly shifted beneath him. Despite all the setbacks, Baer stayed grounded by the friendships that truly mattered, especially his lifelong bond with the Beverly Hillbillies co-star Buddy Ebsen. Their friendship went far beyond the TV cameras. Baer and Ebsen shared years of laughter, respect, and history from television's golden era, and their connection never faded. Even after the Beverly Hillbillies ended, the two remained as close as family. When Ebsen grew ill, Baer made a final emotional visit to his mentor's hospital bedside, joined by fellow castmate Donna Douglas. It was a quiet, deeply personal goodbye. No cameras, no fanfare, just love, loyalty, and decades of shared memories. That moment said everything about who Max Baer Jr. really was. Loyal to the end, respectful of the people who helped shape his life. It was a heartfelt farewell between two men who had once made millions laugh, now bound by something far deeper than fame. But life has a cruel way of turning light into shadow. In January 2008, Baer's world was shattered by tragedy when his girlfriend, model Cherry Rhodes, was found dead at his Lake Tahoe home in what authorities described as an apparent suicide. The news hit him hard, sending shockwaves through his life and forcing him to face a pain far greater than any professional loss. The tragic contrast between Cher Rhodes's youth and Max Baer Jr.'s age, he was 70 at the time, only deepened the shock and heartbreak that followed her death. When authorities found a note left behind, Rhodes hinted at relationship struggles, a short but chilling message that sent waves of speculation through the media. What had really happened between them? No one knew the full story, and Baer, crushed by grief, chose to stay silent as rumors spread. The tragedy quickly spiraled into a media storm, turning his personal pain into a public spectacle. Cameras and headlines invaded what should have been a private moment of mourning, twisting a man's heartbreak into gossip. For Baer, it marked one of the darkest and most controversial chapters of his later life. A time when fame felt more like a curse than a blessing. These two moments, one filled with lasting loyalty and friendship through Buddy Ebsen, and the other shadowed by unbearable loss, painted a haunting portrait of Max Baer Jr.'s journey. His life had seen both the beauty of lifelong bonds and the sting of unimaginable sorrow. Now, at 88, Max Baer Jr. seems to have reached a place where silence no longer protects him. It weighs him down. For decades, he's stayed quiet about one particular story: his complicated relationship with Nancy Kulp, the sharp-witted actress who played Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies. Together, they helped create one of the most beloved sitcoms in TV history. But behind the laughs, their real-life dynamic was far more complicated. While fans saw nothing but laughter, charm, and perfect comedic timing on screen, the truth behind the scenes of the Beverly Hillbillies was far more complicated. What looked effortless on TV was, in reality, tangled with misunderstandings, bruised egos, and years of quiet tension that never fully went away. Looking back now, Max Baer Jr. admits that time has changed how he sees it all. When you're young and riding the wave of success, he reflects, you don't always realize how much your words, or your silence, can cut someone deeply. He now speaks with a sense of regret and maturity, admitting, Nancy was an extraordinary woman and I don't think I appreciated that enough while we were working together. It's a striking confession from a man who once lived in the spotlight and rarely looked back. Baer, forever tied to his role as Jethro Bodine, the loud, lovable but clueless cousin whose over-the-top humor made America laugh, found himself working beside Nancy Kulp, whose portrayal of Miss Jane Hathaway brought brains, class, and sharp comedic timing to every scene. Off-screen, though, their styles couldn't have been more different. Nancy took the craft very seriously, Baer said. She had an academic mind and expected professionalism at every level. I was more instinctive, more playful. Sometimes those worlds just didn't meet. That creative clash quietly grew into years of tension. Rumors of friction between the two circulated through Hollywood, fueled even more when Nancy Kulp later hinted that she'd felt dismissed and unappreciated during the show's run. What fans never saw was that behind the laughter and success, two very different talents were struggling to find common ground. Max Baer Jr. now speaks with honesty about the tension that once existed between him and Nancy Kulp. And this time, he's not holding anything back. I never hated Nancy, he says firmly, but I can see now how she might have felt isolated. He explains how the Beverly Hillbillies leaned heavily into broad, slapstick humor, a style that spotlighted his character, Jethro, while sometimes leaving Kulp's more refined presence in the background. She carried herself with dignity, Baer adds, and sometimes that dignity was misunderstood. One of the hardest chapters in their complicated relationship came after the show ended. Nancy Kulp struggled with typecasting, and eventually she stepped away from acting altogether. Meanwhile, Baer remained forever tied to Jethro Bodine, a role that brought him fame, but also kept him locked in a box he could never fully escape. Success is strange, he reflects. It gives you everything, and takes just as much away. I didn't realize how heavy that was for her. In her later years, Kulp shifted toward politics, becoming outspoken and deeply involved in public service. A move that surprised fans who couldn't separate her from the polished, witty Miss Hathaway. That independence and strength, Baer admits now, was something he didn't fully appreciate at the time. I should have reached out, he says softly. There are moments in life when just picking up the phone can change everything. And I didn't do that. That's something I'll always regret. Now, at 88, Baer speaks with humility and gratitude instead of defensiveness. Nancy deserved respect for her intelligence, her talent, and her drive to be more than just a sitcom character, he says. If I could say anything to her now, it would be thank you. She helped create something that still makes people laugh even decades later. Max Baer Jr. has learned that true legacy isn't built only on fame or laughter, it's built on truth, reflection, and respect. By finally opening up about Nancy Kulp, he's not just clearing the air, he's honoring the real story behind one of television's most iconic duos. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood history, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Tell us what you think about Max Baer Jr.'s emotional reflection and the legacy of the Beverly Hillbillies.